What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and here's my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. So, this episode is going to be very personal, and it's definitely going to be an X-rated episode. So, if you're under 18, please don't watch this video at all because it's going to get really steamy and really hot and heavy. It's not going to be anything morbid or gloomy, but it's definitely going to be personal and very sexual also. This episode of Joe Winko Talk is going to be about this really vivid dream that I had a few nights ago that I will never forget for as long as I live, which actually is now a major sexual fantasy that I want to enact in real life. Now, it's not entirely necessary that for me to do this sexual fantasy, but it's something that I really been wanting to make a reality. But as I said, it's definitely not 100% necessary, so just letting you guys all know. So some background info in case this is the first ever episode of Joe Winko Talk you guys ever saw. So I myself am a single gay male living in northern Florida, and I've been trying to find a lover and a partner for a very long time. And don't mean to be pessimistic, but so far I haven't really had that much luck with it really. I'm honestly open to being with all kinds of men, really, or, as a better way to put it, anyone who was born as a male with a Y chromosome. I think that's a better way of me to state it. For those of you who didn't see my Stalker Girl episode of Joe Winko Talk, I've been doing love spells for a long time because I've been trying to do love spells to attract a male lover and partner into my life, really. And I had this dream like a week or so ago that this woman wearing a red dress, I couldn't see her face, but she came into my bedroom and she told me that she knew I was trying to cast love spells to attract a man into my life. And she told me that what I should do is post a video of me narrating the video as the person who falls in love with me from the perspective of the person falling in love with me. And she told me that I should explain exactly how I want them to feel about me and how they feel when they're with me and everything like that. So that's exactly what I did for my love spell video. And while I was recording it, it got like pretty intense. I included this somewhat romantic tone of creepypasta music in the background because this may sound weird to you guys, but you guys have to remember I have a mild form of autism, so I'm a bit weird in the head also. I mean, no offense to... Well, I mean, it's nothing offensive, really. But, like, in the video, I tried to make it seem like my lover and partner was, like, obsessed with me and, like, attached to me and always wanted to be with me. Because if I really ended up crossing paths with a man who developed feelings for me in that way, that would pretty much seal the deal. Because most of the guys I talk to, they never really get like attached, let alone become obsessive with me at all. And I seriously wouldn't mind that. I would think it was really sweet if a guy really liked me and wanted to be with me that much. It's just the only thing is he would have to be a total bottom really because I can't receive penetrations, meaning I don't suck cock or take it up the ass, and that's a major reason why I haven't found anyone yet because I'm a total top. And a lot of people bash me for that, but that's also worthy of a future episode of Joe Winko Talk. But as I was saying earlier, I'm open to dating anyone who was born a man and any human who has a Y chromosome, meaning that I'm open to dating male to female transsexuals under certain conditions, which is worthy of a whole new episode of Joe Winko Talk. And I'm also open to dating men who are either cross-dressers or gender fluid. And I'm leaning more towards the gender fluid because, I mean, it turns me on seeing a man dressed as a man in a suit and a tie. I was going to talk about that in another video too. But it turns me on seeing a man like dressed as a man in a suit and a tie. However, it also kind of turns me on when a guy is feminine too. Like if he wears like fishnet stockings and high heel shoes, and if he wears skirts. Now, don't get me wrong, that's definitely not like mandatory. It's not like if you're going to be my lover and partner, you have to put on red lipstick. Another thing I love for a guy to wear. It's not like you have to put on red lipstick or put on fishnet stockings or high heels or a skirt for me at all. I mean, it's just one thing that does excite me and does turn me on from time to time because I do love men, but seeing them in that feminine state sometimes like really arouses me because I can't really explain why it arouses me. Back when I was a teenager and I would see men dressed up as women, it would never really turn me on at all because I would feel a bit awkward because I would feel like they're actually women because they look like women. But nowadays I'm able to see like further than that, that they're still men even though they're dressed up as women. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I still think of transsexual, male to female transsexuals as women. But when a guy like occasionally dresses up as a woman, I still see his masculinity behind the female feminicity stuff that he has on. I hope that makes sense to all of you. I kind of have a hard time explaining it because of my autism. Which brings me to the dream that I had a few days ago about me meeting this man who was gender fluid, this fictional man who doesn't exist, as far as I know, this man who only appeared in my mind. First, let me explain to you guys what a gender fluid person is. Let me read you the definition real quick. Gender fluidity refers to a change over time in a person's gender expression or gender identity or both. That change might be in expression but not identity, or in identity but not in expression. So basically what that kind of means in my own words is a guy who, or I mean females too, but I'm going to use male pronouns for the rest of this video so it doesn't get too confusing. Basically, someone who was born a man and they do feel like they're a man, but then sometimes they feel like they're a woman, and that's what the gender fluid term kind of means. They go back and forth from being a man to being a woman, meaning sometimes he'll wear the suit and tie like I love seeing him in. Other times he'll wear a skirt, fishnets, and high heel shoes and red lipstick, which I also would enjoy experience having him in, honestly, which I recently have started to find very arousing and will always find arousing, honestly, especially if it's a man who I'm in love with, as in this dream that I had. So I posted the love spell video, and a couple days after I posted the love spell video, I had this dream that I woke up in my bedroom one day and I checked my computer, I checked my emails, and I got an email from this one man, and I read the email, and this is what all happened in the dream. The email seemed really close and really personal. I was reading what the email said, and it was from this man who claimed that he saw my love spell video. He said that his name was Mike, and remember, this guy, as far as I know, doesn't exist. He's the guy in my dream that I had. He said that his name was Mike, and he said that he fell deeply in love with me, and he said that he was believing that he was under my spell and that the universe chose him to be under my spell to become my lover and partner. And he basically sounded like he was begging me to meet me in the email. He was asking me for my phone number, and I sent him my phone number because, in all honesty, I kind of give my phone number out like candy, yet I rarely get calls from anyone, including the killer from the Scream movies, but let's not go there. So I gave him my phone number, and literally a couple minutes later he called me and he was going like, "Oh, is this Joe Winko?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me. What's up?" And he said, I want you to meet me. I'm in love with you. And he talked in this like raspy, sensual voice. It's this deep, raspy, sensual voice. And I was like, okay, sure. Let's meet up right now. So then what I did was I walked out of the house and I walked down the street. And this is where things got a bit strange because the town that I was living in, as I was walking through it, it looked completely different from how it appears in real life. I was walking down the street and then there was this coffee shop. It was like this outdoor coffee shop with like tables and chairs outside, something that you would see in New York that definitely does not exist in the town that I live in northern Florida. And it almost seemed like I instantly knew who he was. He was sitting at the table waiting for me, and he had this look on his face. He had these soul-piercing eyes, and he was staring right into my eyes as I approached him while he was sitting at this table. And you guys are probably all wondering, okay, what does this man look like? And I'm going to explain it to you. So, every single day I've been watching NBC News. I mean, for the past 2 years, every single day I've been watching NBC News. So it only makes sense that I have a dream about the most handsomest news reporter, in my opinion, one of the most handsomest news reporters on NBC News, who I have a major crush on, and that would be Joe Fryer. He also has the same name as me. This is a picture of what Joe Fryer looks like in real life. However, there were some differences between the guy in the dream and Joe Fryer, although I still recognize them a tad bit. There were some differences. First of all, this guy had like this palish, whitish skin, like paler and whiter than Joe Fryer. He also had these really dark black eyes. He didn't have blue eyes, he had these dark black eyes. And he had somewhat of dark circles around his eyes also. He also looked a lot older and a bit weathered. He had more wrinkles on his face, and he also had more strands of gray hair. However, he still was like really slender, and he honestly seemed a bit scrawny, but he was wearing a black suit and a black tie. And if you meet me while you're wearing a black suit and a black tie, that's something that will really gets my blood flowing and really arouses me because I love seeing a man in a black suit and a black tie. It excites me really, honestly. So I saw him and I went to the table that he was sitting at and I sat down next to him and I smiled at him, was being friendly, and I said, "Hi, how are you doing?" He had this really serious look on his face. Like the moment he locked eyes with me, he was like, "Oh, that's him, that's him." And he didn't say that out loud, but I could see it in his eyes. And I put my hand on the table next to him, and he reached across the table and he had my hand between both of his hands like this, and he was like rubbing it and staring into my eyes, like soul piercing. He was rubbing my hand in this slow and sensual, seductive way. And then he was telling me, "You really are magic. Your spell worked. I love you so much, Joe Winko." And then I'm not going to lie, I did think it was a tad bit weird, a tad bit uncanny feeling I was getting from him. But it was exciting me quite a bit. I thought it was sweet that he was saying that, because that's definitely something I don't hear every day, I can tell you that. And I was like, "Oh, thank you. You really think my love spell worked on you? You're really in love with me?" And he was like, "Oh, yes, sweetheart, I definitely am. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." I'm not gonna lie, I mean, you have to remember, it was a dream, so yeah, and I was just like, "Oh, that's really sweet. You really want to, do you?" And then he says, "Yes, sweetheart, but there's something I really need to disclose to you." And I was just like, "Okay, what is it?" And I don't really remember exactly how he explained this, but he told me that he was gender fluid and that part of him is a man and part of him is female. He explained to me that he was born male, but he says sometimes he's a woman and sometimes he's a man. He said his name was Mike, but he said his female self is named Sherri. And he told me that both his female self and his male self were both madly in love with me, but he said his male self loved me more. But he said that both his female self and his male self were both madly in love with me, and he wanted me to be in love with both his female self and his male self. I know that may seem a bit complicated to understand, but basically that's almost somewhat what gender fluid kind of is. But I kind of feel like, based on the way he was describing himself, this feels more like somewhat of a split personality, somewhat, which is something I'm okay with, especially if they're both madly in love with me and if they're not jealous of each other, because it'd be weird because they're both the same person. But it seemed more like they were a split personality, really, because I feel like a typical gender fluid person would just think, oh, I'm a girl today and I'm a guy tomorrow, same person. But it seemed like this man was like two different people, which kind of reminds me of what the Native Americans believed in two spirit people with transsexuals, I think that's what they referred to them as, were people who sometimes were men and sometimes were also women, or sometimes men who believed that they were female. They called them two spirit people. That's something I didn't really do much research on before doing this episode of Joe Winko Talk, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. It's something I briefly read about online. And when he told me this, honestly, my reaction to it, I honestly found it very fascinating, really. And it kind of excited me and aroused me, and I think that's because of my autism mind. Like, hearing this in a dream excited me and aroused me. But if a man really told me this in real life, it still would have had the same effect. I still would have been excited and aroused by this. And I would have felt like it would be something fun to explore. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not into biological females, but if it's a female who used to be a guy, or who is a guy, it's completely different. I mean, this person wasn't really like a complete transsexual. Like, they weren't going all the way to female, but from time to time they would feel like they were a female, and they wanted me to love them while they were either in their male form or female form. And back when I was a teenager, I mean, like, if a guy was dressing like a girl, I wouldn't be into him because I would feel like he's a girl. But nowadays, I'm smart enough and mature enough to... Hope this doesn't offend anyone, but nowadays I'm smart enough and mature enough to know that if a guy is extremely feminine, I can still see that he's still a man and still get aroused by him and still want him. And if he's gender fluid, that's even better because he can go back to being a full-blown man or go to being a full-blown woman, which is something I'm open to exploring since he still contains a Y chromosome, still has all of the masculine features and everything, which excites me. And I think another thing that really excited me about it is because I feel like I'm being loved by two people, even though it's technically just one person. And for some reason, I don't really know how to explain it, but that really just excited me, honestly. Like, don't get me wrong, I always prefer to be with just one person in a monogamous relationship in a perfect world. I mean, I'm open to, like, polygamous relationships, but in a perfect world, I prefer to be with one person, really. But this kind of felt like the best of both worlds. I'm still in the monogamous relationships because I'm having sexual relations in a sexual relationship with one man's body. However, I feel like I'm spiritually connected and in love with two different souls contained in one man's body. And I feel like there's something supernatural about that that really arouses me and makes it extremely intimate, honestly. And I explained that to him, and I saw the look in his eyes. He had these black eyes. They weren't exactly like Joseph Fryer's eyes, but imagine Joseph Fryer being older still just as skinny, but with a lot of wrinkles on his, not that many wrinkles on his face, but like with more of a weathered look on his face and with more strands of gray hair. He didn't have any facial hair at all. It was all shaved. But I looked into his eyes and I saw the excitement in his eyes, and he had this wide smile. And then he was like, "Oh, sweetheart," and he just reached forward and he like embraced me into his arms, and he kissed me on the lips. And one other thing I want to make really clear. I mean, if this was real, you don't have to look like Joseph Fryer. I mean, first of all, I love all men. Doesn't really matter what you look like, really. If you looked completely different from Joseph Fryer or the complete opposite of Joseph Fryer, like I would still love you just as much, really, even if you were still even if you were still gender fluid, this would excite me just as much as it was if it was any other man, really. I mean, you don't have to look like Joseph Fryer. I mean, really. And you don't even have to be gender fluid to live out this sexual fantasy with me. I mean, it could just be a one-time thing. And you don't even have to live out the sexual fantasy at all, because I'm not going to ask a man to dress up like a woman for me unless he literally would enjoy doing that. I mean, then that'd be pretty... I would think that would be very sweet of him if he literally enjoyed doing that. But only if he really wants to, because if he doesn't enjoy dressing like a woman, that would... I'd feel really fucked up making him do that. But, yeah. Just letting you guys know. So then he got excited and he wanted to take me back to his house. So I got in the car with him and he drove me back to his house, and he said that he wanted to consummate our love with each other. Those were the exact words he used. Consummate our love between the three of us. Oh, wow. And that word alone. There's certain words that excite me and certain words that arouse me. And let me read to you what the word consummate means. Gosh. Consummate. Make complete by having sexual intercourse. So, yeah, that basically means that you make a relationship official by having sex with each other, and that's how the relationship becomes official. Like, it starts now, we're together, we're intertwined with each other, which is a tad bit out of character for me in real life, because I never have sex on the first date. I always try my best not to, because I don't want it to turn into a one-time hookup. But I had like a lot of faith with this man. That's what I'm going to call him in this episode of Joe Winko Talk, even though he's gender fluid, going to call him a man. I had a lot of faith with this man. And just another thing, a lot of gender fluid people, they go by different pronouns, so I always try to use the most polite pronouns. I always try to make sure to talk that over with them. But for this episode of Joe Winko Talk, I'm just going to use male pronouns the whole entire time. So he brought me back to his house, and then he led me upstairs to his bedroom. It was like this really comfortable, romantic atmosphere, and he laid me out on his bed, and he was like hugging me and kissing me. He removed all my clothes. Well, I wasn't wearing a shirt. I was just wearing my red pointy bandana, and I had my shorts on and nothing on under those. So he just like slit those off of me, and he was kissing me on the lips as he was doing it, like these slow sensual kisses on the lips. Like each one of his kisses got softer and softer. And you have to remember, this man wasn't really young. He was mature and older than I was. He looked like he was like in his mid-50s, still really skinny and slender, but in his mid-50s. And I was feeling his lips press against mine. And there's one thing about kissing an older man on the lips. This is my best way of describing it, but it's kind of like if you have a fruit that ripens and ripens and it overly ripens, like not to the point where it starts growing weird stuff on it, but it like overly ripens and it gets extremely soft. And that's the same sensation that I feel when I'm kissing an old man on the lips, and that's the same sensation I was getting when I was kissing him on the lips. And yeah, I wasn't just feeling that on my lips. So then he had my shorts slid off of me, and then he was like giving me gentle kisses down my neck and down my chest and down my abs, and he was tracing and licking the creases around my abs and my abdominal muscles, and it was amazing. And at the same time, he was gripping onto my hands firmly. But then I felt his hands sliding to my hips, and then he was gripping my hips firmly, and my legs were like spread wide open, and he started kissing me around my pelvis, and I felt his mouth get wetter, and I felt the saliva slowly trickling out of his lips with each kiss he gave me, and I heard those smooching noises, like those puckering noises, like that, and I just felt the wetness in his breath because he was exhaling, and my penis in this dream was completely shaved. And when my penis is completely shaved, it has this raw and vulnerable feeling to it, like because all the hair is off and I can feel literally everything because there's no barriers between his mouth and my penis. And it's very exciting, yet very intimidating at the same time. And he had me gripped in his hands, and he was looking up at me, and I saw the look in his eyes, and it was pure desire in his eyes, like this pure desire, like the same look. This is a really weird analogy, but the same look when a person's like really like what the same look when a person's like getting high on something. That's my best way of describing it. Like if they're like smoking and they just want more and more of it, they have that look in their eyes, like, oh, this is the best thing ever, like this look in their eyes. And he was staring me right in the eyes. And he was getting closer, closer, and closer to my penis with his mouth. And then he was exhaling. I felt his warm breath against my balls and my penis, and I was rock hard. And he didn't just like make contact with his lips right away. He slowly moved in with his nose at first, and he put his nose right by my scrotum, right by my balls. I could feel his side of his nose against my balls, and then he inhaled like a deep inhale, like he was smelling my balls, and he took like this really slow and deep inhale, and I felt the wind suction of it against my freshly shaved balls, and it made me quiver a bit, but he was like holding me by the hips and holding me in place. My legs were like spread wide open, and he let out this that noise, and then he started talking to me, and he said, oh, your balls are filled with sperm. I can smell the sperm collected in your balls. You need to be milked. And felt his fingers stroking under my balls and around the prenarium. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'll have it typed on the screen somewhere. Like the area between your balls and your asshole, like if you're a guy, that gets like really swollen because it's your prostate gland inside that area, but it gets really swollen when you're aroused, and it definitely was swollen with him down there. And then he started kissing the crown of my penis. He gave it a slow and wet and sensual kiss, and I felt the wetness of his breath as he finally made contact. And I quivered a bit, and I let out a slight moan, and I was like, and like I was like really excited at that point, kind of like it when just kind of like in real life. Well, it technically kind of was real life. It was in a dream, but this is kind of what happens in real life when a man is doing it right. When a man is like performing oral sex on me, just tense up, and I keep trying to tell myself, relax, let him come in, let him invade you, let him taste you. But I was tensing up because I was getting really excited, not because I didn't want him to taste me. But then eventually he just grabbed onto my hips and just made sure that I relaxed, and then he started performing oral sex on me. And he was being gentle, but I could feel the hunger and the intenseness with each stroke that his lips made over my penis as they slid over my glands and down the shaft into the base, where he was kissing my base while my penis was between both of his lips, and like he was moaning and he was humming at the same time, and I felt the vibrations, and I felt the vibrations when a man hums while he sucks on my penis. Like, I first feel it in the penis area and the shaft and the glands, but then it radiates through my pronarium. I need to learn how to pronounce that word. It radiates through my pronarium and through my pelvis and then up my abs, and I feel it all over my body through my tailbone. And I was just getting so aroused, so excited, and I just put my hands on his shoulders and just felt him sliding back and forth, felt him gliding back and forth, just enjoying that warm, wet, sensual, intimate contact with this very sweet man. During the session, he all of a sudden gripped my hips even tighter, and then he started sucking more furiously, and I was just like, whoa, and like took me by surprise, and I was just like whimpering, and I was like, holy crap, he's gonna make me orgasm now? And he kept like sucking and sucking and sucking, and I felt the sperm creeping up my tube in the center of my penis. I felt the sperm tilting up the tube, and I was about to ejaculate inside of his mouth, but then right before then, he suddenly stopped. Still had his mouth on my penis, but stopped like stroking back and forth. Like he suddenly stopped, and he let out a slight growl, and I looked down into his eyes, and I saw this fierce intensity in his eyes as he stared up at me. He was staring up at me going like, oh yeah, I was the one that did that to you. That's what I am going to do with you. That's how I'm going to finish you off. I can finish you off. He basically did that to show me that's how he was going to finish me off. And then I felt the sperm from and this is really intense when you feel this. I was like whimpering and like quivering and whining. Felt the sperm that was about to shoot out of my penis into his mouth. Instead, I felt it backtrack down my tubes and felt it slide down my tubes and back into my balls. And oh, that feeling. I mean, it doesn't feel bad, but it's extremely intense and almost too much to handle. But I just had to lay back there and receive it, and I just felt it slide back into my balls, and I was like, like that, because sperm usually, I mean, the feeling that you're supposed to feel is it's shooting out of you. Like, it's unnatural when you feel it sliding down your tubes back into your balls, because the man performing oral sex on you does not want you to ejaculate yet. But that was his way of letting me know that he has what it takes to finish me off, and he's eventually going to finish me off. So then he kept stroking his mouth up and down my penis over and over again. And then sometimes he would take his mouth off my penis and he would spit on my penis. And I'm not talking like a gentle spit. I'm talking like a wet, like slobbery, like like that, like all over it. And it felt like he was like marking his territory. Then he would stroke me with his hand and like rub it into my glands while I'm laying there whimpering. I mean, I was enjoying all of it, honestly, and I was just laying there, letting him slide his hands and letting him slide his mouth all over my penis, letting his saliva penetrate through my freshly shaved skin on my penis, letting him feed off of me and taste my pre-ejaculate fluids, and it was really getting intense. If any man was like sweet enough to do all this to me for a really long time, and if I knew that he was hell-bent on becoming my permanent lover and partner, it doesn't really matter what he looks like. I mean, as long as he's really sweet and really sensual and nice, I would absolutely enjoy it. I mean, I want this to be real. Eventually, he kept performing oral sex on me for a long time, and then eventually, like he intended, he caused me to ejaculate inside of his mouth and gave me an orgasm, and it was intense. And while I was laying there twitching, and he just like held his mouth down at the base of my penis and just applied really strong suction and sucking like every last drop out of me and like milking me. And I was like laying there whimpering and quivering, but he just mercilessly kept sucking and milked every last drop out of me. And then I just laid there. I was really out of it in the semi-post-orgasmic haze, and he started rubbing his hands on my body, and he like slowly climbed up and kissed me like passionately on the lips. And then he whispered in his ear that he loved me. And then he rubbed his hands. His hands were still covered in his saliva, still drenched in his saliva. He like rubbed them up and down on my chest. That got me hyped. I mean, got me excited, got me aroused, really, because it was more of marking his territory. Like, don't get me wrong, I do not like it when a guy spits on my face, but when you spit on my penis and spit on my balls and rub it into my chest and rub it into my abs, that's a completely different story, really. I definitely enjoy that. I just prefer for you to gargle with mouthwash first so your breath isn't stinky or anything like that. But that's exactly what he did, and whoa, and I was like, whoa, this is intense. And then he kissed me on the neck, kissed me on the lips. He told me that he was in love with me. He says, now I'm going to go get Sherri. She's going to take care of you now. He says, I'll be back for you later, sweetheart. And he kissed me on the lips again. Then he got up and walked away. And then I heard the door close behind him. And then I was laying there still in my post-orgasmic haze. And some time passed. All of a sudden I heard the door open up again and she walked in. Well, he walked in, technically, because it was him, but he was now in his female form. He was wearing a dress. More of a skirt, really, like a sundress, kinda. Sundress skirt. I'll have a picture of whatever he had on. He also had the fishnet stockings on, and he had these black high heels on, and he was, like, walking in, and then he had this long blonde wig. It looked real, but it was a long blonde wig. And he had this red lipstick on, and he walked over, and then he saw me laying in the bed, and he rubbed his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Aw, you're the cutie that Mike brought here." And she said, "My name's Sherri. I'm so excited to meet you." And her nails were painted red. She was rubbing my shoulder. She leaned over and she gave me a passionate kiss on the lips. He leaned over and gave me a passionate kiss on the lips because he was just in his female form. Then he kissed me on the cheek, and it left a lipstick print on my cheek. And you know, that was actually one thing that I always been into. I remember, we're going to get off topic for a little bit, but I remember back when I was a little kid, there was this girl who used to babysit me all the time, and she always would wear this red lipstick, and whenever she'd come over, like whenever it was time for her to go, she'd always kiss me on the cheek, and I'd always get really excited for her to kiss me on the cheek because it would leave this red lipstick print on my cheek, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, "Oh, cool, I have the lipstick print on my cheek," and I thought it was funny. And then she would tell me, "Oh, when you grow up, you'll have tons of girls giving you those on your cheek." But that was before we knew I would grow up to be a gay guy. However, it's still possible for me to get those on my cheek. Doesn't have to be a biological female to give them to me, and technically doesn't even have to be a female at all to give those to me. But that's one thing that I'm really into. Like a guy putting lipstick on his lips, red lipstick, and giving me tons of kisses on my face, and having all those prints on my face. Much like the gender fluid artwork that I shared on my Facebook fan page, which I forgot to mention earlier. As you see, as he's in his female form, you see that Joe, me, is covered in red lipstick prints, and those are all from him, all the places that he kissed me. But I would want him to kiss me in more places besides that, and I'm pretty sure you guys all know. Yeah, another thing about me that I probably never really explained much is that I'm also able to orgasm for multiple rounds. So if a nice guy wanted to like suck me off over and over again all day long, he absolutely can do it, and I would absolutely enjoy that. So Sherri started kissing me again, kissing me around the neck, leaving more prints on my neck, leaving more prints across my chest, leaving more prints across my abs, leaving more prints across my pelvis, even leaving a print on my balls, and even leaving a print on my shaft, and leaving a print on my glands. And I'm pretty sure you guys all know what came next. He started performing oral sex on me again. However, this time he was kind of doing it differently. Like when he was in his male form, he was grabbing my sides like firmly and sliding his lips up and down me. Like he was doing it gently, but I still felt like a bit of speed, like he was doing it roughly. But when he's in his female form, he was like essentially like rubbing his hands like all over my body and like worshiping my body, really. And when a man is worshiping you, he's not just like having your penis in his mouth. He's like involving your whole entire body and bringing your whole entire body into it, like I was his offering, and like my body was literally in the palms of his hands, and he was like I don't know how to describe it, but I'm pretty sure you guys all get a picture of what I'm talking about. He was like rubbing me and relaxing me, opening me up more and more and more, and relaxing me more and more and more. And I just felt myself like sinking deeper and deeper and deeper into his mouth. And I felt his saliva running down my balls. And I felt his saliva absorbing and penetrating through my freshly shaved genital area. And I felt him like gulping and sucking my pre-ejaculate fluids. And I looked down into his eyes, which had this really dark eyeliner on now, and these really thick eyelashes, and his lipstick, and he was just like sliding up and down on my penis. I mean, he was in his female forms, but as I said, I'm using male pronouns throughout this whole story. And I had my hands on his shoulders, and I was massaging his shoulders. And I wasn't saying anything to him, but I was moaning, and I was saying it with my eyes that I loved all that stimulation and contact, and I appreciated all that stimulation and contact that he was performing on me. And I just felt us merging closer and closer to each other, and he just kept doing it over and over and over, and I would feel myself getting close to orgasm, but then I would just feel it slowly slide back into my balls, and he would know when I was getting close, and I would just it was intense. He was taking me for a ride again, and it was like slow and sensual, and then it would just he would get me so close to the edge, but then he would just sensually massage it back into me, massage the second orgasm back into me. But he kept working me up and building me up over and over again, to the point where I couldn't, my erection would not go down. I was still like rock hard. And then he pulled up his skirt and he straddled me. He was wearing a pink or a red thong under his skirt, and what he did was he just, because there were mirrors all over the room too, so I was able to see his sexy lean ass. What he did was he pulled the thong out of his ass area. I mean, he like didn't pull it out because it wasn't inside of him, but like he like slowly slid the thong with one of his fingers, exposing his right hole, and then he like sat on my penis, and I just felt myself sinking deeper and deeper and deeper up inside of him. And when my penis entered him, he let out this hoo that noise. It was like high pitched hooing noise. I don't know how to describe it. And then he leaned forward and kissed me on the lips, kept leaving more prints on my lips, kept leaving more prints around my lips, kept leaving prints on my cheek. And like with each kiss, like I felt my sperm getting higher and higher and higher up on through the tubes of my penis. And then I was getting close to ejaculating, and he just kept like moving his ass and his hips like up and down on my penis, like milking it. And then I started moaning because I was getting close to orgasm, and he grabbed me by the wrist with both of his hands, and he held me down with this force. And he was like, "Yes, sweetheart, come inside me. Please come inside your sexy lady." That's what he was telling me. And I came like deep inside of him. But then he quickly rolled me on top of him, and he wrapped his legs around me because he was straddling me when he was riding me, but now I was like on top of him and inside of him, and he wrapped his legs around me, and I was like pumping my load deep inside of him, and he was whispering in my ear, "Yes, come inside me," with like so much force. And the gravity of me on top of him was pulling my sperm into his anal area, and I ejaculated inside of him. Yeah. I really hope that news reporter from NBC News doesn't see this video, because that's going to be extremely awkward, really. Well, not necessarily. I mean, like, the guy in the dream just resembled him. It wasn't him. I mean, he had black eyes, he looked older, he had a more weathered look, and his skin was paler and whiter than his was, and he had more of a mysterious look. Not that really friendly look that Joseph Fryer has, but a more mysterious look. And plus his name was Mike anyway, so yeah. And now he was dressed as a blonde woman, but I was still able to recognize that it was Mike. And I was still able to see his masculinity under the feminine persona he was portraying. But I ejaculated inside of his anus, and then he gave me another passionate smooch on the lips, and then he smiled at me in that feminine, girly way. His eyes were narrow, and he was like that, and he bucked his eyebrows, and he slid his hands all over my body. He started talking to me, and he said, "Oh yes, I know why Mike loves you. You're such a sweet boy. I loved having you inside me. I loved having you come inside me. Now I'm in love with you too." And he kissed me on the lips. Then he left me laying there in my post-orgasmic haze. This is after he rolled back on top of me and was straddling me again. Forgot to mention that. And he walked out of the room, and he told me, "Mike will be back with you soon, sweetheart. And then I'll be back with you one day because I love you, Joe Winko." Because remember, this gender fluid man from my dream, it seemed more like it was a multiple personality than a gender fluid switch, really. I mean, not all gender fluid people are like that. They just consider themselves the same person, but it seemed more like he was considering his feminine persona separate from his male persona. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe a lot of gender fluid people do think this way. I mean, maybe you could let me know in the comments. Then I was laying there in a post-orgasmic haze again. Then Mike came back in his male form, and he said that his female form was deeply and madly in love with me, and he was straddling me. He got on top of me, started rubbing his hands against my chest while he was straddling me, and he was saying that his male form, however, loves me much more than his female form. I mean, his female form still loved me, but his male form loved me much more. And he was wearing his suit again. The only difference this time is he had nothing on below the waist, so he had the suit coat on and the tie, but was naked from the waist down, and he was like sitting on my erect penis. Like now it was erect because he was rubbing my chest and kissing me on the lips. And then he once again sat down and started riding my penis, and I was moaning, and I felt the stimulation. He was doing it with more force. He was bouncing on it, and I felt his ass like hitting my pelvis, and I heard it, that hitting sound of his flesh of his sexy ass like striking my pelvis, like it, a bit like that, except it was a bit faster and more of a, because you have to remember his ass is a lot softer than my hand, really. And then I was getting close. I told him, I'm getting close, I'm gonna come inside you again. And then that's when he completely went down, wrapped his arms around me, and just rolled over on his back, had me inside of him. And then he used his sphincter muscles to squeeze my penis and made me ejaculate deep inside of him. I was balls deep inside of him, and I was ejaculating deep inside of him. And I was like moaning and quivering, and yeah, and I blew another load up his sexy ass and kissed me on the lips passionately, and he wanted me to stay inside of him. And I thought that was the sweetest thing, because usually right after I ejaculate inside someone, they want me to pull out. I mean, not even then. Like, most of the time when I'm like fucking a bottom guy, like the reason why I don't do intercourse very often is because my penis is 8 inches long, and when I'm fucking a guy in the ass, and my penis is like curved a certain way, it's like curved like upward. I mean, like the way most of them are curved. And I always like fucking a guy in a missionary position. I don't really like the term fucking because that sounds too impersonal. But when I was fucking his ass, like usually when I'm fucking a bottom guy and I'm fucking him in the ass, I always strike his G spot right away, and that makes him come like hands free. But like when a guy comes when I'm fucking him, then he wants me to pull out right away. He doesn't want me to stay inside of him, and oh man, that's such a diss. But I believe if a man was like very submissive, and well, he wouldn't necessarily have to be submissive, but if he was like, I don't know if this is the correct word to describe him, but extremely pervertic, as in he always wants my penis inside of him even after he orgasms, and he likes the feeling of having me deep up his ass even after he orgasms. I mean, I think he would always love for me to be deep inside of him. And after I orgasmed, and I did strike his G spot and make him orgasm too, because I felt like the sperm like sandwiched between me and him, and he wanted me to stay on top of him and inside of him. He wanted to like hug and kiss me and enjoy that intimate contact between both of us men, in love with each other and merging with each other. And he kissed me on the lips and told me that he loved me. And then he reached to the side and he grabbed a butt plug, and then with his other hand, he pulled my penis out of his ass and he put the butt plug in his ass. He told me that he whispered this in my ear. He wants his ass to absorb all my sperm. And that just really turned me on. I probably could have gave him another load after saying that. But then he rolled on top of me and he was straddling me again with the butt plug in his ass and not my penis in his ass. And he was kissing me around my shoulders, kissing me around my chest, kissing me up my neck, and kissing me on the lips. And he just kept kissing me over and over and over and over and over again. And I just was in this deep post-orgasmic haze. Then I woke up in the bed behind me, knowing that it was all just a dream. Strangely enough, it was a wet dream, which was really weird because I've been masturbating a lot. I shouldn't still be having wet dreams, but I guess that was so intense that my balls just started producing more sperm as I was sleeping and milked it out of me. And I was like, whoa, I mean, I'm definitely not 12 years old anymore, so I have no idea how I was able to make a wet dream, but I just was able to. I mean, because that dream was so intense, it almost felt supernatural. And in a way, it honestly was supernatural. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the guy looks like, but because I really don't care what a guy looks like. I plan on doing an episode of Joe Winko talk about that eventually. But it was supernatural, really, because I was literally having sexual relations with two different souls inside one body. Two different souls who shared the same mutual love for Joe Winko. And it was intense, honestly, and it was beautiful, really. It was absolutely beautiful, which is why it became my major sexual fantasy. And I've been painting a lot of pictures with acrylics lately. Oh yeah, that was one thing I almost forgot. Let me show that to you. This was my first ever acrylic painting. I really been wanting to do acrylic paintings because I wanted to paint some scary movie posters for my A Nightmare Encounter Sims 2 series that I've been making. I made my first Nightmare Encounter movie back in year 2012, and I made a Nightmare Encounter 2 Island of Illusion in year 2014. And this was the poster I painted for my first Nightmare Encounter movie. Now, I really wanted to paint with acrylics because I thought that they had that scary dreamlike vibe to them, like a Freddy Krueger movie. I mean, obviously I need to learn more about painting with acrylics because I couldn't really figure out how to blend the colors in very well, but I thought this one turned out pretty decent. I was worried it was going to turn out worse. It didn't turn out as well as I hoped for it to, but it's still pretty decent nonetheless, and I was so proud of it. I was taking pictures of it and posting it online. But another thing I've been wanting to paint were my sexual fantasies. And I definitely wanted to paint this, a picture of this man, of Sherri and Mike. I mean, it is a man, really, because it was in a male body, performing oral sex on me and a side-by-side comparison of them. I mean, I wouldn't be allowed to post that on Facebook or on Twitter, otherwise it'd be 18 plus. Like this video most likely will be 18 plus. But I could share that on DeviantArt, and I could have it be like awareness and presentation of gender fluidness. I don't really want to say gender fluidness representation because every gender fluid person is different, honestly. But I think I'm not really sure what a respectful term would that for that would be. Would it be gender fluid awareness or gender fluid representation? I feel like gender fluid awareness makes it sound more like it's a negative thing when it's really not a negative thing at all. It's definitely supernatural and definitely powerful, like two souls living inside a man's body, one feminine soul and one masculine soul, both of them presenting themselves and both of them wanting to love and cherish. I mean, love and cherish me. But, I mean, I'm not saying that every gender fluid person should love and cherish me. I only need one because that's already two souls who I'm going to be romantically involved with as long as they're both okay with it. And I think that's very beautiful, really. That's why I wanted to make it an acrylic painting. However, the one thing that I need more of is I need more flesh-colored paint because I'm, like, out of that. But I added it to my Amazon wish list. More flesh-colored acrylic paint and more white-colored acrylic paint. I have those both on my Amazon wish list. So if someone can get those for me, I would really appreciate it. I'd even do a whole thank you video like I always do. But yeah, that's one thing I've really been wanting to make. I've really been wanting to paint my sexual fantasies. I remember as I was painting this picture, I had that song by, what do they call them? I think it's Phil Collins, but I think the band he was in was called The Genesis. That song Tonight, 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 because it has that really creepy, obsessive vibe to it, the sound of the music in the background. And whenever I hear that, I always think of a creepy man, like, haunting my dreams and stalking my dreams. I mean, I wouldn't really be creeped out about that. I would actually be pretty aroused and excited by that. It would just be sad because he wouldn't be real. However, if Freddy Krueger was stalking my dreams, I mean, in this picture, I look pretty freaked out and terrified by that. That's supposed to be me right there. I was modeling that picture, really. I'll have a side-by-side comparison. However, if Freddy Krueger was stalking my dreams in real life, assuming that he wouldn't want to kill me at all, I would actually enjoy that very much, just like my Freddy Krueger and Joe Winko gay love life Sims 1 live streams. I definitely have to do more of those sometime, so remind me to, definitely. But it'd be really be really an interesting experience to be with a gender fluid man. And it wouldn't just be an experience, it's definitely something that I could take on for the rest of my life. But don't misunderstand what I'm saying in this video. You don't have to be a gender fluid man to be with me. Just a normal gay man would be fine with me. I mean, and you don't have to dress up as a woman like every single day or every other day, or you could just dress up as a woman once for me, as long as it's something comfortable with you. That's the most important thing. Sexual stuff has to be consensual. Even stuff like this has to be consensual. And in the stream, it was definitely consensual, definitely mutual upon both of us, and we both definitely seemed to enjoy it, really. But that's the thing, honestly. I would want a man who would enjoy doing that with me as much as I enjoy doing that with him. And there's so much more I can say about that, but I need to save that for another video because I'm already at like over an hour so far. But this was something that I really wanted to talk about. And another thing I wanted to add, technically he wouldn't have to be gender fluid. I mean, he doesn't have to be that much into it. I mean, if he was, I wouldn't mind, really, but it's not a requirement, really. I mean, this whole sexual fantasy isn't even a requirement. It was just something that I experienced and would want to experience in real life. I mean, it's not even necessary for me to experience in real life, but it's just something that I want to share with all you people out there, everyone watching this video, really, that people with multiple gender identities are still amazing people nonetheless. I truly believe that there's something supernatural about them. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I definitely mean that in a positive way, but definitely supernatural. Just like the Native Americans. I myself am actually Native American. That's one of the many things that I'm mixed with. The two-spirit people, that's what the Native American people believe. I'm not a two-spirit person myself. I'm 100% a man, even though I do some feminine things, as you guys see, like paint my nails red. I mean, red is the color of love and passion, which is why I wanted to paint my nails red in this video. And if you look at my fingers, you'll see the rune sigil, the same rune sigil that was flickering on my chest in my love spell video to attract love from one man to another man. And I still consider a gender fluid man a man, but I hope that doesn't offend anyone or hurt anyone's feelings, really. I mean, even though they're technically whatever they say they are, but like he said that his male side of me, I mean, I would personally want a man who prefers to appear as a man more often. Like the feminine persona of him is a treat that comes out every now and then that he wants to unleash upon me. And it would really excite me if he did that. But he doesn't necessarily have to do that. He could stay a man the whole entire time if he wants to, or whatever he prefers. I would still treat him like I would still love him and treat him with respect and cherish him. If I was lucky enough to find a lover and partner at all, that's the thing I've been looking for so long. So if you guys want me to do more sexual videos about my sexual fantasies, because trust me, there's a lot more than that, just let me know in the comments and let me know what you enjoyed about this video, what part you enjoyed most about this video, because I would really appreciate that communication and feedback with you guys, because it always excites me and always makes me happy when you enjoy hearing about my sexual fantasies, even if you're not sexually aroused by them, but are intrigued by them. Because of my autism mind, I mean, that's my way of sharing what goes on inside my autism mind with all of you guys who enjoy listening and who are entertained by listening. I mean, I would really appreciate that, and I hope this video made you happy, and I hope you guys all enjoyed listening to it. I hope it made you guys as happy as it did with me being as happy as sharing it with all of you, honestly. Yeah. It was a tad bit awkward, I'm not gonna lie, but I mean, by now I'm used to doing videos about stuff like this. So I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And can you guys all hope that I do end up finding a lover and partner? It doesn't even necessarily have to be a lover and partner who's okay with doing this, but a lover and partner who would love to perform oral sex on me a lot. I mean, I would definitely enjoy that contact and that attention and that company and that special intimate bond between both of us. It's been a while since I allowed a man to perform that on me, but it only should be a man who's very special and who deserves it. And if it was a oh well, like someone who would want to spend like a lot of time with me and do it to me over and over and over again, but I plan on saving that for a future episode of Joe Winko Talk. I'll have more sexual episodes of Joe Winko Talk listed in the pinned comments of this video, and I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. So that's basically it. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.